Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to On Your Mental. This is the podcast that shares candid, open, and sometimes vulnerable conversations between and about men. This is week 3 of our Movember series of episodes, and today we're talking about fatherhood and what it means to be a better father. We're joined by 2 friends of mine. Kabir and I are basically listening this episode. It's a good conversation. We got some good lessons in it. Of course, if you're interested, if you want to donate to Movember, links in the description so y'all can check that out. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoy the episode. It's a good talk, and I'll see you in a moment when the episode starts. Peace. Welcome, Ryan. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Welcome to On Your Mental. Today, we're going to be talking about more Movember stuff because this is week 3 of Movember's episodes. This isn't like a cause area of Movember's charity and the organization, but it is something that they mentioned on their website is talking about fatherhood. And so talking about the idea of being better dads.
It's a big topic.
I love it. It's a big topic. It's a big topic for sure. I was thinking a little bit about it today, and it's kind of like fatherhood is a quintessential part of being a man, at least in my own eyes. Everybody, you come into this earth from a dad of some sort, right?
Straight from the dad.
Straight from the dad. I mean, I suppose there's 2 parts that are played. And even if you don't become a father yourself in your life, right, you have a relationship with a father, whether that be direct or indirect because of absence or not. Who knows?
Yeah.
You 2 are both dads.
We are.
Gratitude.
Yeah. So I was going to be asking you both some questions about what it's like being a dad, basically. And Kabir and I are not, as we've established in previous episodes. I keep saying that we know of because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But I'll
this
open.
will turn it over.
Yeah. With enough time, people keep hitting us in the DMs. Who's that big, handsome guy over there? Oh, man. Anyways, I'll open up the conversation to all of us here, and I'll mainly direct it at the 2 of you. First off, tell us a little bit about you being a dad, just briefly. I mean, how many kids? What's the sitch? What's the deal here? Just to give us like a tiny bit of background, then I'll ask the question about what you love about being a dad.
Well, I'm a dad of 2, and I have 2 beautiful boys, Leo and Reese, and I definitely look up to them a lot. The situation, it's just very busy and very chaotic, super chaotic. You can't really explain with words of how being a dad is. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely chaos. I'm also a father of 2. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, Neve, and then a 3-year-old son, Harry. And they are. Neve is just the absolute, light of my life, and Harry is the complete opposite in terms of chaos and keeping our house in absolute terror, and so. It's the best thing in the world, but it's definitely a tough job and but very rewarding.
Yeah,
it's constant mess. That's for sure.
It's
constant.
There's like
you
chaos.
You clean one side of the house, and then the other side is a mess. You clean the other side of the house, it's another.
What's the point of cleaning?
And then you just decide, this doesn't matter anymore.
Literally.
Yeah.
I love when hearing dads talk and they're like super honest about their kids. I love this one. This one is a nightmare.
Man, I always find it funny too, like the different dynamic between kids as well, right? Like you'll have such a different view of
Absolutely.
them. I think of my my cousin, and he's got 2 young boys, and one of them is this like real whiz of a kid, right? And the other one's a real bruiser. Right, they always say like he's gonna be the football player. He's like a couple years younger than the other, but he's bigger and like as tall as him. And it's so funny. Eats anything, loves sausage. He's just a beast, man. So I always find that really funny. Thank you for letting us know who you are and what your kids are like. The question I guess that I'll start with then is, like, what do you love about being a dad? If there's any things that have kind of like stood out for you. The reason why I want to ask that is like I aspire to be a dad one day. Kabir. No, this is gonna be like an ongoing joke for seasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm always the guy that doesn't want the
To
kid.
be determined.
To be determined. But I've known for some time that I want to be a dad. I've talked to you about it before, right? I've looked up to you as a father. I've known you just for less time. You never know. Like
It's all good.
I could look
It's
up
all
to you one
good.
day too. You never know. But yeah, what do you love about being a dad? Because I just want to hear that kind of stuff. I want to know why you like it.
It's hard to put into words exactly what it is that I love about being a father, but one of the things for sure is watching my kids grow. Right, and whether it's learning something, or this whole past summer, my daughter she was just going into kindergarten, and so the whole summer working on getting the training wheels off, right? Whole time working on the monkey bars. Like I'm like, she's going into school. I want her to be able to crush these other.
She's gotta be sick.
She's gotta be ready to go. Yeah, right. So the whole working all summer, getting the training wheels off. We finally take them off, and she's out there, riding down the Arbutus Greenway, falling over. She gets up. She has my temperament too as well. She gets up and she like throws the bike down and everything, and she quits. Right, she quits riding bikes. We go home and everything. She slams the door and she gets in. And I give her a little minute, and then I go in there and I sit down on the bed and with her, and I break out all the talks, right? Everything, like, hey, listen, it's not about falling down, it's about getting back up. It's everything, Coach Carter, everything, pulling everything out of the stops, right? And then about 15 minutes later, she goes, okay, let's go do it again, right? And so she gets out there and she's like flying down the Greenway, and it was unbelievable. See, I was sitting there crying. I'm getting emotional now, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's that stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's seeing them grow, through your eyes,
Yeah.
and just imagining how like my father and my mother kind of did the same thing with me. I'd assume. There's a videotape of me when I was a kid. I have an older brother and older sister. And my older sister very much commanded the limelight. And so when my dad finally got this camera, right, this old school video camera with VHS tapes.
Yeah.
You had to put VHS tapes in this thing, close it down. She's watching her gymnastics stuff, and I'm off, in the background, and my mom screams out, "Oh, he's eating grass!" And I was a third, so it's like, after the second one, you're like, for the first one, which ones will actually what they can do, and then the third one comes along and you just don't care anymore.
Facts.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. We know that's
just dinner.
a little grass is fine.
That's funny. That's really sweet, man. I imagine like what that's like watching somebody grow in your own eyes, right? Because they're growing, I guess, based on your guidance. Yeah. Right? You have so much influence on them. Right? If you weren't there, I guess, in that moment, like, who knows? Maybe like genuinely would have never gone on a bike again. Yeah. It could have been that moment, where that's like a key memory, and no, I'm not touching a bike. Right? And something small like that is so huge, it really, carries into like so many other events in our life, I'm sure, right? Yeah. Like that, the Coach Carter speech is gonna be there.
Exactly.
She'll be thinking back.
Right.
Until she watches Coach Carter one day, and then she realizes,
like,
whoa.
second.
Wait a minute.
Dad's a fraud.
Yeah. My dad's not Samuel L. Jackson. What is this? Anyway, sorry, Ryan.
No, yeah, that's like very true. What you're saying about like the smallest things that you just get so proud of. Like, for example, my kid just learning how to speak. Yeah. Right, just saying like two words together, saying like no, mama, no, dada.
It's just all no.
Such a proud moment. Yeah, my kid says no all the time. That's his favorite word. No. But yeah, just like even he was saying, like for more, he would say May May. That's my cat's name, and that's how he would indicate that he wants something. But once he started to say more, it was the most like the best feeling that he says more now instead of May May. Right.
What do you want the cat for?
Like literally every time his aunts and uncles, he would always say May 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 May, and they're like, "What are you saying? What are you saying?" But yeah, it's definitely a proud moment of being dad, just watching them grow with the small steps.
For sure. I've only like interacted with like nieces and stuff like that, like friends' nieces or my cousin's kids, right? And yeah, like seeing kids learn to speak is such a funny thing to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're
So
just
funny.
piecing it together. They're trying to get
Yeah.
something out too.
Yeah.
But that's really cool, man. That's really cool.
They're so smart though. Like
Mhm.
Really
they
smart.
understand.
And can you really notice like how kids just pick up anything?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
You put an iPad in front of them,
Gone.
they'll know.
Mm.
We had a good.
That scares the shit out of me, to be honest.
That scares me too as well.
Oh, you haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Oh no, we have.
Oh,
for
okay.
sure.
I was like,
Oh
are you
yeah,
living right now?
we definitely have. It still scares the shit out of me.
Mm.
But no, the other week, so we have a cat, and it got what do they call it? Neutered
Yeah.
for cats.
One of the two.
One of the two, right? His
balls are gone.
His balls are gone, exactly. And so my wife was talking to her mom on the phone once, and she was saying, "Hey, yeah, next week Binks is getting his balls chopped off, right?" And lo and behold, my daughter, who then has her Star Student Day at her elementary school, and Star Student Day, she brings in her little cutout of herself that has everything that she loves, which is like strawberries and her friends and her cat. Oh, and by the way, her cat got her balls chopped off. So her teacher had wanted to snag us afterwards for just a few words.
I find that dynamic really funny to me too. That like a teacher and a parent.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're getting in trouble. It's done school, man.
Exactly.
This is my kid.
Yeah.
How is it my fault?
You got more homework.
It's quite
Yeah.
It's definitely quite judging.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Just get up for high horses. You know what I'm
it's
saying? Yeah.
Who are the teachers?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're doing their job. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess.
That's right.
Oh man. So I mean, like obviously you both sound passionate about being dads. You find some pride in watching your kids grow. So the other question, I guess, kind of related to that I prepared to talk about was, how do you feel like your life has changed since becoming a father? Maybe even for the two of you, from the first kid versus the second kid. Do you feel like there was even another shift in the way that you see your life or navigate your own life?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No brainer, guys.
No brainer.
Yeah.
It's definitely changed once that baby came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely like such a inspiration moment. Like, oh, my life has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is directed towards the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Especially just being like sort of like a young dad. None of my friends have kids, so it's definitely like inspiring, and it's definitely lonely at sometimes, right? Not having other friends that have parents have kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely changed. Nothing's the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's the same is my personality.
Yeah,
It's still the same. But your daily routine is completely different.
Right.
You're up. Since I have a newborn, I'm up every 3 hours at night.
Oh god.
Just just taking a nap is like the best thing. The power nap is like the best thing, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's literally impossible when you have a dad. Until right now,
Yeah. No
this
kidding,
is our
man.
free time.
No kidding. Yeah. You're
This is
both
our
here.
free
yeah,
time.
where are we going after this?
Honey, sorry, the thing ran a little long. I couldn't come home. Man.
Yeah, drastically changed. First kid, I think, like I didn't really get it until she was born, and I say this all the time, like your partner, your wife, goes through all these changes. They have these, hopefully 9 solid months of growing this human inside of them. And they have all that bonding moments. And as is, the dad in the relationship, you don't really have that.
Right.
And it doesn't,
Until they're born.
It doesn't really hit you until they're born.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that like my life completely changed once that happened. I think I got very focused on like what I needed to do now, right? Because I was 30 when Neve was born. So, I think for most of our 20s, my wife Lauren and I just kind of were living, for today and not really thinking too much about tomorrow, and which was great. But then, all of a sudden, our daughter was coming along, and I didn't really understand what I had to do as a husband or a father until then, right? Then it all became about, okay, like how do I, okay, we need a bigger place, like, so we gotta increase our income or whatever it is, like, how do we do this? And then for the second one, I don't think it changed. My focus didn't change too much, although I did, end up selling the PlayStation for a stroller. So I think
same.
That was some
Same. I literally did the same. That's so funny.
some more sacrifices came along,
so
but it was, it's definitely all worth it.
That's too much.
Strollers are expensive. Strollers are.
That's where you draw the line.
I can't do it. No drink.
I sold it to this like 18-year-old kid too, and I was. I had like 2 controllers, all these games and everything like that, and it was like $200.
$200.
I was trying to get rid of this thing. I didn't care. We just needed a couple more $100 to get the stroller. This kid comes along and he's checking it out, and he's like thinking that I'm scamming him. Yeah. Like, there's no way that this can be.
What the hell are you selling this?
Yeah. Why are you selling this, man? And it's just, get out of here, kid.
You like hand him the PS4, and then he goes to grab it.
Just kind of hold it.
It's like a tear coming down.
Treat it well, son.
Yeah.
You don't know what we've been through.
It's like you don't have time for that though. You don't have time to play. Like I wish that I can like play like anything, right? But you have to play with your kid majority of the time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss that.
Play that play time with them is
the best.
Unbelievable.
It's the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Even today, my son and I had a day together. So and he wanted to break out the little basketball hoop, and I was like, oh, cool. He's never wanted to do this yet. So go bust it out and everything, and go find all the balls and stuff. And no, he just wanted to take his giant action figures and huck them at him. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Like, it works.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that when I think of like my time interacting with kids, it's for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can like you're cool with it because you're having fun. Like, oh, like look at this, I get to be the uncle.
Yeah.
Right. When it's your kid, I imagine very different.
Different story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that massive focus shift, I guess, is what is I guess the thing that you can't prepare for.
Yeah.
Right. It's like as cool as it is to think about raising a kid, it takes so much time.
I think because I always think about it's not just about the playtime. The playtime is really important for the development, but it's also I'm looking at it as how do I make sure that something's setting in and like or the reading and like are we learning something, right? It's not just having fun. It's trying to develop their senses and their skills for all those things. That always creeps into the back of my head as well. It's like, yeah, I would love to just like huck action figures at basketball hoops, but at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that kind of scares me about like thinking about becoming a dad is where like no matter what we're doing, I feel like I would always need to like throw in a lesson. And something needs to be learned, or I need to be doing the exact right way.
Right.
Right. That's I mean, I imagine that would stress me out quite a bit.
Yeah. And it's not true. It doesn't have to be that way. Being present with your kid is probably more important than anything. But yeah, I don't want to fuck this up, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So
no.
Honestly, you can't prepare.
No,
you cannot prepare. No matter what you do and train yourself to become a dad, you can't prepare yourself. It's just going with the flow at the same time and seeing what kind of experience you have and apply it to your child. That's probably like the biggest thing. Like I thought I have 2 dogs and I like when they were puppies, I thought it was like the same. Right. It's completely not.
Turns out
that it was I know how that silly it sounds, but it's like, oh, like I could do this. I could totally do this, right? I have 2 dogs. I have a cat. I could totally raise a child.
Well, people like draw that comparison all the
For
time.
sure, all the time.
Oh, you should learn
I
how to
did.
raise a pet. Yeah.
But it's nothing like
There's
that.
no truth in it. Eh? That's funny.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I guess it's like people will be like, oh, it's just the responsibility for another life, but a dog. It's a dog.
Yeah, dog.
What are we talking about here? Man, that's funny. I feel like I'm kind of on the same page as you, where I would be like conscious of wanting there to be a lesson in most things. But when it's every single day, there can't be.
Right.
I guess that's where you loosen it a little bit, right? And you're
Yeah.
not putting so much pressure on yourself. The presence is the more important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you mentioned that, actually, because when we had our episode with Christine and Louise, when we were talking about women and their fathers, at the end they
Great
were giving
episode.
like some advice. Thank you. Yeah, it was a
Great
good one. I
episode.
liked it. They were giving some advice about young men who might become fathers one day, and like what to do to be a better father. And the main thing was presence, right? Just being there and being involved in what they're doing. We were specifically talking about raising daughters. So that might be something.
That's why I definitely
about,
tuned into that one. I thought it was fantastic what they were saying. So, the presence is so huge, and I think especially in this. I think we always, it doesn't matter what generation it is, but we always think that this was like the hardest generation to come. Right?
Yeah.
I know that like
it just gets harder. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Every
and there's
generation's
different, there's things that are harder about this than, when we were growing up. And, like we were saying, I think it's the technology piece is I'm terrified of. Yeah. Right. Especially, living and working and being so involved in technology. But, it scares me every day.
At the same time, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing
it's
how much
weird
they can
balance,
learn.
man.
Yep.
Just parent. You just gotta,
and they can be, they can be in touch with their family from all around the world. And
I love seeing kids on FaceTime.
Yeah.
To be honest, like they love that shit. Like I love like
Good one.
But like when like I'm watching like a niece or whatever or family member and they're on FaceTime and they're watching something they're just talking to grandma and grandpa whatever like their faces light up. They know that's them there and they know that they're just through the phone, you know what I mean? It's a cool thing to see, right? Because that is a level of connectedness that you don't get. Because I think back to like I saw my grandma once a week. You know what I mean? At most, right? They can see their grandparents every day if you wanted to through technology. But then there's the flip side of it where you lean so far into it as a crutch. Like I hate when I see parents and like the kid has been glued to it for over an hour and they're just like sitting there like,
that's tough.
Come on, talk to them.
Yeah, it's hard. And at the same time, with the past couple of years, it was so sometimes necessary to try and to just survive. I think when everything kind of shut down and we were trying to work from home, and that was a fucking disaster. But there was definitely some of those times where you just felt bad about, hey, I know this lasts like 2.5 hours. This kid's been on this iPad and I've had to put the passcode in like 14 times because I just got to get this done. And
man, I remember over the pandemic, you called me one day and we just had a quick little chat. Yeah. And you were hating it. Yeah. You were hating it.
I swear that on my sleeve.
Like, this is terrible. I thought, in my head, the naive, I don't have a kid thought was oh, shit, you got all this time to spend with your kids. Yeah. You're like, I fucking hate that.
You hate it if you don't have an office space.
Bro, man. I can't imagine. And suddenly, so many people talking about the idea of the fact that once you became a dad, you started to realize, okay, there are these other things I'm responsible for, finding a bigger home, increasing my income, things like that. Yep. Now you're thrown into this. If you're not at that point where you were prepared, you know what I'm saying? Got to be rough for some, you know? Yeah.
And it was really tough because it wasn't that, hey, now I'm home and get to spend all this time with my kids. It was that I was home and I had these other responsibilities and they knew I was home. Right. They didn't give a shit. They don't give a shit about those responsibilities, right? And and I don't blame them. I don't, but you're like
dad's home. It's playtime.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to play too, but it was.
What is that Pavlov's conditioning or something like that? Like when you give a dog a treat and they salivate, right? And they want it, right? And then you put the treat there, you ring a bell at the same time as feeding them, right? And then when you ring the bell and there's no treat, they're still salivating. It's like, dad's home, playtime. Why am I not playing right now? What the hell's going on? Earlier in our conversation, we had talked about you had mentioned something about your dad, when your dad raised you, did a good job, right? The same way that you were imposing these lessons onto Neve, your dad did the same for you. So this other question that I wanted to ask is, how much of your father do you see in your own parenting style? in the way that you do things? Are there things that even like you think about, oh, I wouldn't have wanted to do something the way that they did it, so I'm going to do it this way instead?
Yeah.
Because me, again, no dad, right? I don't have that thing to go off of. So all of my parenting is going to be from how my mom did it, right? When I eventually become a parent, it's all going to come down to how my mom raised me. So whatever I liked or didn't like, one perspective, that's it. Whereas you have two parents, but being a father, you might think, oh, this is how a father role looks, right? Because that was how mine was.
Right.
So anyways, wanted to ask you both, how do you maybe see your own father in your parenting?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually just met my dad 2 years ago.
Oh, no
For the first time. And he was in the hospital. But long story short, like, he was definitely not present in my life. So I can definitely relate to you a lot, as I only had my mom to raise me. So, like, being a dad, I really didn't know what it was like being a dad, or what to follow, or what kind of rules or what kind of sports do they need to be in, and like just that typical dad figure. So I just played on my own, and just going with the flow again. But yeah, it's actually a very sensitive topic for myself just to talk about that.
Yeah, I won't like dig into it with you at all. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
that's
definitely
interesting.
something I can relate to.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I don't think I see too much of my father in me, and it's not because I don't want to, right? I think different circumstances as well. Like I was, my parents divorced when I was really young, but in my dad, I remember him, and I as a child, that the third kid came along around about 5 years after my sister. I remember feeling like my dad was like super old.
Really?
Yeah. So like by the time that I was like 12, 13, and really starting to get into sports and stuff, and wanting to play and wrestle and stuff like that, my dad would work most of the time. And then by the time he came home, I always remembered him being too old to go kind of out and throw the ball for any more than a few minutes and stuff like that. And, that always stuck in my head. So that's why when Lauren and I started talking about having kids, I was like, listen, 30, I gotta, because I don't want to be,
you gotta get started.
I think my dad was 39 when he had me.
Wow.
Right. So by the time I'm, 15, he's almost in his mid 50s. So like I don't remember a lot from those times, because I do know that, I spent a lot of time at home by myself or with, my buddies and stuff like that. And we'd go and do stupid shit. And it was just because my dad was always working. Yeah. Right. So it's strange to think back and try and see like what are the life lessons, but they do end up coming through every once in a while. Yeah. Like I'll remember something, a conversation or a lesson, getting a job, right? It was a big one. What to do, how do you, when you earn $1, save 50 cents, right? Those types of things, they come through, that you,
I don't do that shit.
Yeah.
But sorry, go.
Yeah, it was weird. I really want to see that, but I just can't remember.
Wow.
It's strange.
No. My mom had me when she was like 42, 43.
Yeah.
Right. And just her. So it's weird that you mentioned that, because I've never consciously reflected on that experience yet. I figured, once I get close to being a dad, then I'll start thinking about their shit. Yeah. But now that you say that, it's like, when I was growing up, even in elementary school around the same age, I had to go to a particular school because I had an after school care program because my mom was working. And so I had to go to a particular school, for example. So there were things that affected how I grew up. I moved to a different elementary school in grade 6 because throughout grade 5, I started just biking home from this other school. So clearly I'm fine. I don't need this after school care anymore. Boom, you're over here. But yeah, it's like I didn't have a parent home until after 5 o'clock when they're off work. Right. My mom retired when she was, I think, 63. And so that was 20 years. Right. My mom wasn't home until she's done work. I've never thought about that. That's interesting. It worked out well in a way, because I made all these friends, right? And I had such strong relationships. I depended on these relationships with my friends. And so there's always a pro and con to everything, right?
Yeah.
There's upsides and downsides, but that's interesting that you make that point.
Yeah. And my mom was going through nursing school and stuff and all that. So the arrangement that they had, same thing, left me at home a lot by myself. And, just cause, sister and brother they don't want to hang out with you.
How much older were your siblings?
So my brother is about 7 years older than my sister's 5 years older.
It's a big gap.
So so like by when my parents divorced, I was 5. So brother's 12 and sister's 10, heading into their formative years and everything. So I think that definitely, like, in my opinion, hit more on them than it did me. Like I don't like I said, but I don't remember this very large chunk of my childhood until my best friend Tony came along when I was about 11 or 12, and so.
I wonder if that's related. I don't remember a lot of shit from when I was a kid too.
Sounds like because I have like almost the exact same age gap too. My two older brothers, and it sounds like my parents divorced around the same age as yours. Yeah. And I don't have any memory really, like before like grade 4 or maybe.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It is funny because I remember, like, I feel like I remember things, right? And it was a few years ago. Actually, not a few years ago. Now this is a very long time ago now. But when I was moving, a few years ago, 2001. I was moving cross country, and my dad came to pick me up in New York, and I was moving to Seattle. And we had this, awesome road trip, and we're talking a lot of stuff like that. And I thought that I remembered things so clearly, and they were not at all. And it turns out, like, a lot of the things that I had remembered were in a very short gap. So that it wasn't like years spanned out. It was just like, it was like a summer, right? But for me, it like translated to be my entire childhood, right?
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
It's definitely a similar story, like to myself. Like same with my two older sisters. One's 7 years older and one's 5 years older than me. And going after school care, that's all I remember. Is going to either after school care or to like my
tomorrow's top kids.
No.
Never know.
Or to like a babysitter. That was like my childhood.
Yeah.
Because my mom always had to work. And it would just and my sisters never wanted to hang out because they were like teenagers. Yeah.
And that's just the circumstances that you get sometimes, right? Like we don't get to control what we're born into. So I find that interesting that like you consciously were like, no, I got to have a kid earlier so that I can be involved in a bigger part of my kid's upbringing and raising my child, right?
No rush.
No, right? Yeah. No rush. And it's an interesting dynamic even between the two of you of parents because you are a much younger father, right? You're not 30, are you?
No.
Yeah, see, I didn't think so. I didn't think so. I just want to make sure and confirm. Like, I thought not. But there, for the longest time, I've thought, like, I wanted to have kids by the time I was 28. And for some reason, 28 was the year in my head. It's like, oh, like, that'd be cool. Like, I'm young enough that I can relate to him. I'm young enough that I'm the cool dad. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be fun. Like, I'm going to be a spry guy. I can throw a football, right? I can do whatever, right? Not well, but, like, I can do it. And that changed as my perspective around relationships changed because like I realized, okay, like I haven't met the person who I'm going to be spending my life with. So I'm not going to be approaching fatherhood in that same way. And yeah, it's just your perspective and your ideals change sometimes, but I'm on the side where I'd like to be a younger dad for, I think the same reasons, right? Like I don't want to have those gaps.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want there to be that. But then like at the same time, like I'd be working as a young dad too. Right. So like how do you balance that out? Like yeah, it's just different. It's hard. Yeah.
You'll be a cool dad.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll make him watch all the podcasts.
Listen to Drake albums, all the audio stuff.
This guy knows stuff.
Yeah. I just gotta stay ahead to keep embarrassing them.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You gotta get on TikTok, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So another thing, I guess, that kind of ties into everything that we've been talking about, taking stuff from your father per se, or not taking stuff from your father and how they raised you. What do you think would make yourself as you are now a better dad? if better can even be described, because that's going to be subjective, right?
Sure.
There's not going to be one perfect thing. I guess you kind of mentioned something earlier too. It's like there's no one way of doing stuff, right? There's no best way of being a dad. Yeah. So what would be better for you, thinking of where you are now? What would be better for you? And like take into account the pandemic, like that shit threw a fucking wrench into everything and probably changed how you look at parenthood. And
I think going back to being present is probably my number one, is being present, being there, being available.
Do you feel as though you're not being present right now though?
No, I definitely am right now because I'm on maternity leave, but like
Paternity.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean,
my bad.
It's 2021.
2021. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just being present, like, because if I am not working, I'm working like 2 jobs, right? And I have to like take care of the family. That's like my number one focus. But trying to be present. If I have that little mini break before I have to go to work, I'll come visit my kid just to play with him very quickly, roughhouse quickly, and go back to work, right? And it makes me sad though, because that's the one thing that I understand, where being a young dad, you have to work all the time. Not even just being a young dad, just being like a parent in general. You just have to work all the time to provide for your young ones, and trying to be there as much as possible is like probably the biggest focus.
Do you find it hard to go to work sometimes?
For sure.
To miss your kid?
Definitely. Like, cause sometimes they wake up, I have to go work, and I miss the whole day, and then they go to bed, and I'm still working, and then I don't see them at all. I only see them for like a short period of time. But right now, like during the pandemic, it's great, right? So like you can see, working from home though was a gong show. At one point I would have to like give them a bath while they're crying while I'm on like a WebEx call. It was insane. It was literally insane.
What'd you say?
You just hear a baby crying in the back, and like, just 1 second. Let me get to my presentation. God, those times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I can be more present, right? And it's little things like, even when the kids wake up at 5 a.m, it's what's my attitude to get up with them, right? And most of the time it's not there. It's sleep, like, we have the grow clock and everything. They don't give a shit about anything. So but it's I think it's how the things that I'm always trying to work on is how do I react differently, every day. And then really is putting the distractions down, but also like trying not to lose the things that make me happy as well. Right. So get away from the phones, get away from the iPads, things like that. But got to make sure that you have like, time for this, like this, like talking and stuff is great. Last weekend we went, a couple buddies went and watched the fights, right? Keeping those types of things in, is so important.
Yeah, they were good fights last week.
They're amazing cars. But just a couple of hours, right, a week, is enough to, or keeping your hobbies going, right, or finding new hobbies, like whatever it is so important. But knowing when to be present. So it's like you can't be on your phone during dinner time, right? But it happens all the time, right? It's sometimes you gotta like, I need to shovel food in this kid's mouth, and he won't do it unless there's an iPad there, and it like feels like it stabs you in the heart, but at the same time, like, I gotta feed this kid, right? And so I think it's like, for me, what I know that I can do is I can put my phone down, right, and I can be with, even if I'm just with them and they're watching something on the television, or and I try and get kind of regimented with them, and nope, we're going into the room and stuff like that. We're gonna play, and you will play.
You're gonna play, and you're gonna have fun.
You will have fun with these ones, right? But it's making sure that I leave the distracting things out of those times.
So you would say, I mean, both, it's a presence thing then, right? Like that But I can only imagine that is a difficult thing to balance, because exactly like that, like you're keeping things that make you happy too, because it's still your life. Yes, your kids are this huge part of it, and something that brings you immense joy, and you're happy to watch them grow and everything. But there's still other things that you like to do. That doesn't go away once you have a kid.
But
it has to. It has to an extent.
And
you got to put it on the back burner.
I feel like that it is in the back burner, where it's like for this period of time, like you need to put your hobbies, like you take 1 to 2 hours with your buddies for sure, like one time a week, but it's sometimes very difficult to do that, right? But definitely taking that time, that's like my biggest challenge. Is to take the times with my buddies to hang out for like an hour or so, because that's what they expect, right? But trying to be present at the same time, but to be present with your friends, to be present with your children, to be present with your partner, it's definitely like a challenge, right? So as a father, there's a lot of like stigma where it's like you put your hobbies away so you can provide like happiness for your child, right? Definitely the biggest challenge for myself as fatherhood. Definitely.
But keeping, and I this is why I think this type of conversation is so important, is like that. I think we're kind of the first generations of the mental health side of things. Right. The I love you dads, like, willing to talk about your mental health. And it's so important that the communication stays between you and your partner. And, like, Lauren never asked me to put any hobbies aside. Right. So it was just something that I thought I had to do.
Sure.
Right. But then you end up talking about it. It's like, no, just let me know what you want to do. And
I'll take care of the kids.
Take care of the kids and let me know. And it's, you balance it out and everything. And, but it's so important now that we have these types of conversations, and that you're talking about this with, your family in the moment as well.
Yeah, I was just talking to some person that reached out on Instagram about one of the last episodes, and it was we were talking about the fact that this generation does feel like it's the first generation that's more in tune to this stuff, that like, and hopefully like we actually are the generation that does something different. You know what I mean? Like you always say that same thing earlier. We said this is always the hardest generation. Hopefully this is the better generation for mental health and starting to understand that. But even then, it is just starting to understand it.
Right.
When we had our conversation with Mitch and Dev, we talked about how as you grow up and you start to get to that 30-year-old point, like that was a number that Mitch threw out there, and it scared the shit out of me. But like when he said that you start to reach that, people become fathers, right? People move, people get really deep into their careers, and you stop seeing your friends as often. And then now hearing from the two of you that you get that 1 to 2 hours a week to see your buddies, because so much of your other time is focused on your family and raising these kids. I can imagine that creates a space and maybe a hole where you need that social connection, right? Because you can't connect necessarily with a kid on everything, right? You said at the start of the conversation that you look up to your kids. That's amazing. But 2 years old and newborn, right? Like there's only so much you can look up to, you know what I mean? And there's only so much you can't vent to them. You can't tell them what's on your mind. You can't tell them the shit day that you just had at work, right? You could, but they're going to hit you with May, right? Like, what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, it's so important that you get time to have this connection, I guess, social connection. And even if it is coming to talk on a podcast, sweet, thanks for giving me your hour this week. Like, really appreciate that. And
it makes you better for them as well, right? When you do the things that the little tiny things that make you, again, like watching the fight with your buddies for a couple hours. Kids are already asleep and everything like that, so it's not a huge, maybe a huge ask. Who knows? Ask Lauren, she'll see. But especially after a long day,
3 hours.
But it makes you like, I always find like I come back, more charged up. Like, hey, I can power through the dishes tonight, or make sure the place is tidy, right, and I can do that at 1 a.m. after hanging out, and it's very important to
the batteries are recharged.
Absolutely.
You also just realize how precious like that time is when you have that 2 hours with your friends, or a couple hours, right? It's amazing. Like I make the best of it.
Right,
For
right.
those 2 hours, 3 hours.
You're
I
cracking
just,
jokes nonstop. Like,
all the time. Tell you like
Constantly hugging
Going
them.
at it.
literally.
your friends, get this guy out of here, man. You know, like, oh. Man, there's a song by J. Cole. Just for you. I mean, you don't know who he is. There's a song
I don't
by
know
J.
anything
Cole.
past 2003 for music wise.
Yeah, you might get along with Kabir. Kabir likes older stuff. J. Cole has a song called Foldin Clothez. There's a Foldin Clothez part 1 and Foldin Clothez part 2. One is addressed to a partner, one is addressed to a child. He's actually written this whole album. It's called For Your Eyes Only, and it's from the perspective of his friend who had passed away, and it's actually written to his friend's daughter. And beautiful album, great story. But the two Foldin Clothez, one for a partner, one for a child, is about how much you kind of like put aside of your own interests to do these little things for your partner or for your child. In the Foldin Clothez song part 1, where it's about the partner, he's talking about you coming home and you fold the clothes, you fold the laundry. They're asleep on the couch, they're taking a nap because they're tired.
Yeah.
Right. But you're doing the little things to show that you appreciate your partner. When he's talking about the baby, for the baby, I'll drop the tough guy shit, and he's doing the diapers and all that, whatever. And you become a dad. You put yourself into these moments. And I find that story and that song, those two songs, are really cool because it shows the level of sacrifice that I think is required to be a good father and a good partner. It just highlights it's in the small details, I think. It's in the small details.
Definitely, like, sacrificing is like a big one too. Just like you were saying, just like folding clothes, changing diapers, and letting the mom sleep for like an hour. It's like just those.
Give
little
them a break.
things.
If you can get that hour before you leave, it's like
They appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Like if I just wash the dishes quickly, I wash the bottles quickly before I go to work, they'll love you so much for it. Just because like if you don't do it, that's a different story.
you're still washing bottles for the second one.
Still washing
Gave up
bottles.
on that. The second one, swish it around the water.
It's clean. Man, that's
Spit
awesome.
check.
This one looks like it was only used once.
Yeah.
Fill her up. Man, I think that the message is clear in like our conversation today, right? Presence is so important as a dad. So being someone who wants to be a dad, I really appreciate this conversation. You know, it lets me see the other side of it, or just a glimpse of the other side of it.
There's just so many different sides of like of me and him. We're so different, right? The way he parents, the way I parent, I just see it so differently, but I see a different perspective. And I take that in because I love seeing other role model dads that are out there, because that's what I look at. I'm like, oh, so that's what he's doing with his kid. I want to do that too, right? And it makes me so happy seeing another dad like doing new things with them, and it inspires me as well. Like, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
On the topic of presence, I'll share something that I learned recently.
Oh, that's good.
So, after the Women and Fathers episode, when I was going to edit it, I went into my 23andMe to get a little screenshot of my little DNA result. Right. So I go open it up, and I open up the app, and lo and behold, there's a message and a notification from January of this year. I hadn't looked since months, right? From a DNA matched half sister. And so I look at that and I go, oh shit, that's interesting. My whole life, like, no shot. Like, I didn't think this was possible. In the episode, I talked about how the doctor had destroyed all the records, medical records, and there's no way for me to find out that way. Turns out they've found the biological father. They've reached out. They talk to the biological father every month. I've corroborated the story, so I know it's true. So I actually know who my dad is now.
Shit.
Father. And I guess I say father because it's not a dad. And that's the point that I wanted to make about presence. I know what they look like. That's all I cared about. I know a little bit about their life. And I know that I have a half sister. Cool. But on the point of presence, my biological father played no role in raising me.
Right.
And now learning of him and the fact that I could meet him, I have no urge to meet him.
Right.
I have no urge to act on it. I have no urge to change my life. I have no urge telling me, yeah, I got to bring this person in. And so the person who's in your life, the person who does raise you, I think is a lot more important than the person whose blood you share.
Sure.
Right? So the presence part is so important.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. When I first met my dad 2 years ago, he was in the hospital at St. John's. No, St. Paul's, sorry. He was some sort of critical condition. I wanted to meet him when he wasn't conscious. Just I wanted to see what he looked like, see if his hair was receding.
Yeah. Literally, that, bro, my dad's bald as fuck, dog. Like, I'm gone, man. I'm growing this out. I'm not touching it.
And I had no emotions. Like when I saw him, like he was with like wires hooked up to his heart, like so many, like he was just not conscious. As soon as I left though, it like hit me. It's like, wow, that's my dad, not my father, right? Just that like hit me. I was just like, wow, like there's such a difference between like a dad and a father. I don't have any like remorse. Like I'm not mad at him. Definitely disappointed. I wish I had a bond with like a dad, to see what is fatherhood, to help myself out. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
No, it's all good. It's like I toyed with the idea when I first learned about who this dude is. I toyed with the idea of now knowing that I could meet him. Am I going to be upset if one day he dies and I didn't? And I was like, and I'm still like, it's still a thought in my head, right?
Yeah. Have you met him?
Nope. At this point, don't plan to. He's local. Like he's
really
close.
Oh, is he local?
Yeah, bro. Like Maple Ridge, man.
Oh, yeah.
I know my mom was always like, "Is he dead yet?" He's dead. He's not dead. He's not alive.
I wonder. You don't have to put this in, but I wonder, like, do you know the situation?
All that I know is that he donated for 10 years. Donated from I think 91 to 2001. I was born 96. Got married in 96. And he's been married for 25 years. He has his own family. So just completely.
I mean, because obviously your mom made that choice herself.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, deliberate choice. Very deliberate choice.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
Fuck yeah. Rock on, man.
Yeah.
But like, she was like the first person I told, right? Like she knew, like, we were both on the phone and like the half sister sent me photos and I was like I was just scared to open it. I didn't open it for like an hour. And then I'm talking to my mom on the phone. I'm like, Mom, so got these pictures. And so I sent it and my mom just goes, holy shit. Because she like realized like, yo, that's the dude. She only ever got a description, right? Like never like heard any detail about it. But conversation for another time too, because I just wanted to add that in there about the importance of presence and the flip side of it, right? The lack of it, if it's completely a lack, I think when you get that kind of like teetering and wishing that there was more of a presence, that can hurt a little bit. For me, I'm not hurt by the father because it just was not even an option. Right. It was a sperm donor. Cool. Yeah. Cross the X on that part of the life.
How early
He's gone.
did you know?
Very young.
Very young,
my mom's never lied to me about it. It's never been a question. It's just been like when I asked, I'm sure she told. Yeah. So as far as I can remember, I've known that I was born from a donor insemination. So yeah, it's just chill. Donor. Yeah. But anyways, I'll kind of like tie things up there if that's okay. Yeah. Kind of like to like wrap up the episode, box it up. We had a good conversation about what you both love about being dads, and it's just nice to hear the pride that you both have in watching your kids, and the fact that you look up to your kid is interesting to me, and I wish maybe I could have asked more about it, but for time's sake. And then we touched on the importance and the one thing that you both said that would make you better parents is presence and being more involved. I think that's like in my head, it's like an irrefutable thing now, considering we've heard it from Christine and Louise. We've heard it from the two of you as fathers, right? Presence is so important. You need to be there. And that's going to be the one thing. Like if you make the choice to be a dad, if it is a choice, do it and like commit to it, make the sacrifices you have to make if there are sacrifices to be made. But still also try and maintain those social connections, find that time for yourself, the things that are important, because that's going to be important for your own sanity and how that projects then back to your kids. So it's this whole, everything's connected. Absolutely. But thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for having
us. I really appreciate it. Nice little talk. We got to just sit and listen.
Great listen.
Yeah, no, honestly. I like episodes where we do.
I'm undecided.
He's on the fence.
That's nice. That was a nice conversation, though.
I just don't want to.
Still nowhere near.
Man, I like episodes sometimes where we do get to be just the ones listening, right? It's nice to have guests, like actual guests that you're telling us about your experience more so than we're having like a group conversation. As much as I love those too, it's nice to just sit back and just learn for a little bit. So thank you for coming, everybody listening and watching. This is of course week 3, like I mentioned at the start of the episode, of our Movember themed month content, whatever. There's 5 of these. There's going to be 2 more after this. In Movember's website and how they talk about fatherhood, they talk about the importance of social connection. That's kind of the last little bit that we got to there. So fits right in, you know, being a better dad. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. If you're not already, make sure that you're subscribed. We got a new episode every Monday. We've got 2 more in Movember. Donation link down below if you want to donate. And yeah, stay tuned and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.